Wow. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Looking forward to kind of spending the day with everybody and just getting an opportunity here to talk and discuss. This entire event has kind of been a long time in my mind and in my thoughts, and so I'm very, very glad that you guys were able to come, and I'm hoping that we get an opportunity to do this more regularly, more frequently. I think that thinking regionally really gives us a great opportunity for us who are local to kind of understand the intricacies of the dynamics that we know are particular to our region and to our location. So while we may be turning on TV and seeing all kinds of national calamities or various things, I think that all of us still understand that basically at its heart, being a Reconstructionist is a grassroots type of perspective, that ultimately it's about us in our front yards and in our hearth and home, where everything starts, and then from there we get kind of the slowly expanding, increasing influence of people who've been transformed by the gospel of Jesus Christ. So that's kind of a little bit of the philosophy behind what we're thinking here with the Reconstruction meeting. So I have the pleasure of being your first presenter, as also being your host. So today we're talking about spreading the gospel via today's Roman roads. So I think that ultimately a lot of us do sort of understand that the gospel did start with very humble beginnings. Mm-hmm. Wait for it. Hey, there we go. Okay, so I think that we understand that the gospel started with this seemingly incredibly humble beginnings, but the gospel in its form, it was a message that was being delivered, and it was the good news about the kingship of Jesus Christ. Now, in God's providence, amazingly, there's an entire network of history that's occurring when the gospel kind of comes to fruition, right? That begins to spread, and so the idea, the perspective that the Lord was using His divine providence to lay the foundations for what He wanted to accomplish, what His purposes were in the world, in propagating messages. So this is kind of the initial stages of what I'm discussing here. So as it says in Romans, how beautiful are the feet of those who preach the good news. So this is my premise that we're thinking about, is that there is ultimately three things. The first thing is that there's a road that the message is being propagated through. Secondly, there is a message. There's some content that is going forth throughout the world. And third, and most important, it is beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. And so that's what I would like to share with you all today. So I was doing research on the internet and found this quote from Robert Crosby from the Huffington Post. And he said, "The famed Roman roads of the ancient empire were among the foremost technological advances that helped Christianity spread so rapidly. Their construction was strategically well timed to the incarnation of Christ and the subsequent missionary journeys of the Apostle Paul. The building of these continent-connecting arteries started in 500 BC and ultimately spanned over 250,000 miles. They not only enabled the Roman Empire to grow, but also propelled the gospel forward." So, what are the Roman roads of today? And I think that you probably all can kind of get an idea about what I'm thinking about, is that we do have roads that are laid out for us, both physical and, infrastructure wise. So this is what I'm thinking about for today's Roman roads. How can we deliver a message, and what are the means by we can do it? So what I'd like to encourage everybody to do is to think about how this applies to each of us individually. How can we kind of use the resources we have at our disposal to spread a message? So let's talk about a couple little outlets here about the types of roads we have. So first one is Facebook. Anybody heard of it? Yes? Probably. Okay, Facebook has 2 billion monthly users. 2 billion monthly users, which I think is about a third of the population of the world every month, which is quite staggering when you think about it. That's how many people are getting on every month. So that's a good reason to say that basically this is almost entirely a Roman road type territory. A few demographics about Facebook, just to get an idea of the kind of people that are using Facebook. You can imagine essentially everybody is using it. Single people, married men, women. 82% of 18 to 29-year-olds, I think that's the millennials, I believe. I don't know how old the millennials are today. They're somewhere maybe early 30s, I think. But 82% that are online are on Facebook. Amongst the 30 to 49-year-olds, still very, very high, almost 80%. And then a little over half of users that are 65 and up. Beyond the U.S., which I think some of us don't quite catch as much as often, there's an incredible social media presence. And if you do more research on this aspect, you'd be quite amazed. 85% of Facebook daily active users are outside of the United States, which is also fairly impressive. We think in America we have about 300 million people. So that means there's a tremendous amount of people out there that are hearing and seeing information that comes across them all the time. As far as the market is concerned, Facebook is essentially dominating the entire market space for internet access. They say 1 out of every 6 minutes spent online is somebody on Facebook, which is also, again, quite staggering. The average person, 20 minutes per day. As far as video is concerned, a lot of these are just kind of marketing things and ideas and tips, techniques. 100 million hours of daily video watched, that's worldwide. And then Facebook Live is also growing. People just can, social on kind of a mobile hotspot. That has been used in very, very negative ways, but it is being used. It is available. 66% of users consume news on Facebook, where people get their news from a lot of this, and 88% of millennials get their news from Facebook as well. This is the last bullet. Within 5 hours, you get 3/4 of all engagement that's going to occur on something that happens that hits a feed. So that's where most of the engagement is going to occur. Okay, YouTube, another gigantic Roman road that's out there. So I thought this was quite impressive. The very first video on YouTube was uploaded in 2005. In April of 2005. Since then, the total number of people who use YouTube is 1.3 billion people. So about a sixth, I would say, of all the people in the world. 300 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube every minute. Every minute. I'm uploading video right now. You guys don't even know it. That's amazing. That's a tremendous amount of content that's going and hitting YouTube that's available to everybody. Almost 5 billion videos are watched on YouTube every single day. And then 8 out of 10 18 to 49-year-olds watch YouTube. So YouTube is a massive market. I mean, I've gone on there and I try to figure out how to do something, how do I sharpen my knife? And boom, 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 boom. And then probably you're going to get some kind of video that pops up on YouTube. and you're just going to watch it. And if it's quick, there's different strategies for how people are trying to get your attention, but it works. They are understanding how the mind is working, and they're trying to catch you very quickly. Snappy picture, very quick video, whatever it is, it's engaging people. So people are both going for information on how to do stuff, and then people are also going onto YouTube a lot to kind of, for lack of a better term, just see other people live lives that they're not living. So that's kind of a big, I don't know if that is necessarily part of the curiosity aspect, but the whole idea of reality TV, that's been growing largely, and now reality TV in a sense has gone completely organic. And now absolutely anybody can transmit aspects of their life, if they so desire, to everyone else. So there's a message that people are able to put forth, and it's not being managed by producers anymore. Now the creators have the ability to tailor and craft exactly what they want to show, or what do they want people to see. So basically, each of us can be our own producer for whatever it is that we want to present to people. So I was taking a look and seeing what do most people watch on YouTube. Now these are markets that are dominated based on sex. So for women, it looks like a lot of women are watching makeup and cosmetics. I have not been there. Skin and nail care, guilty again. I'm not going there. Weight loss, no. East Asian music, I've been tempted to see East Asian music. And then dogs. I am a dog person, but cats. I can't believe cats didn't make this. Why is cats not on here? It's kind of astounding to me, right? Funny cat videos, you got like 1 million views right there. Anyway, that's where the women are. Now for the men, I have to admit, when I saw this initial slide about the men, I was significantly depressed. Significantly depressed to see these are areas that men are just completely focused on, and they own essentially. And if you look at this, it's a lot of, what do you guys see? What are the big things? Games, fantasy games, sports, and fighting, warfare. I see a lot of warfare. A lot of warfare. Can you not see? The top ones are card game, or the top ones here at the bottom. Soccer, strategy games, Xbox, basketball, shooter games, massive multiplayer games, virtual world, fighting games, animation software, role-playing games, bodybuilding, driving and racing, PlayStation, Nintendo, and card games. So kind of essentially just anything that has to do with action-oriented fantasy, it seems like, is this male-dominated area. So let's talk about influence, right? We need to be talking about how people are using these different mediums to propagate their message. So influence, and I don't know how many of you all are in this same vein too, but people say, based on research, more than half of daily YouTube users aged 18 to 49 say their personal opinions, including politics, has been influenced by YouTube creators. So for the lingo, a YouTube creator is a person who's basically consistently uploading content, and they are providing content for people to consume. So half of daily YouTube users, their thoughts, their viewpoints are being shaped by the people who are creating content and putting it out there. 6 in 10 YouTube subscribers would follow advice on what to buy from their favorite creator over their favorite TV or movie personality. This is not a hard thing for me to even fathom, because I have seen and gone on the internet, and there's people that I follow, maybe people who write blog posts or people who do whatever, and I care about what they think, right? I care about their opinion. It's important to me. And so if they recommend something, or they say, hey, here's something that maybe is interesting, you might want to check out. I know moms do that a lot. Dads do that as well. But, we see that. We're like, hey, oh, what are you doing? Oh, I'd like to try that. How is that working for you? Oh, it's going like this. Oh, really great. Hey, honey, maybe we can try that, right? That's not same thing. It's exactly the same kind of idea, except it's happening through a screen instead of through actual people. Well, through people interacting. Well, this is a great aspect that I'm very sort of passionate about as well. If you can ask Larry about it and get me going here, so I'll try to keep it smooth. But basically, I'm thinking about Mormonism's influence, particularly in this arena and in YouTube. And every time I come across a creator that I know or I find out is a Mormon, I'm just astounded. I'm just it boggles my mind how much these people are engaging and pushing their agenda and presenting as normal what is acceptable, what is good, what is holy, what is pure, because that's what's being communicated. That's what they're saying. This is the way to go, walk in it, and this is all right. So the piano guys, I don't know if you know any of these people, the kid snippets, okay, their stuff is a little bit funny. Some of their things. There's a lot of stuff with the hairstyles that young Mormon ladies are doing. Shay Carl, he was a big YouTube family vlogger. What's inside? I'm just going to take a couple minutes to talk about the what's inside thing. Has anybody heard of what's inside? Yes, millennials. That's it. Okay. Yes. Okay, so what's inside? Okay, so essentially what happened, it's a father and a son, and the son had a science project. The science project was to, hey, find out what's inside of a tennis ball or something like that. So the dad says, cool, let's find out. So it's like, like the kid goes home and the dad's supposed to help out, figure it out, okay? So they record it. They record them cutting open the thing and talking about it. And dad does a little bit of research beforehand. He talks about what research he had on the video. He says, oh, so it's made out of this polymer and this fuzz and whatever. And he gives that information to the viewer and he does it, okay? And they said, wow, this is kind of interesting. It's a homeschool science project, okay? It's a homeschool science project. The dad and a son, and they're cutting stuff open, and they're recording it and putting it on the internet, okay? Thank you. They have 5 million subscribers. They have gone full-time cutting stuff open and putting it on the internet, okay? Now, they are committed, and they are working hard, but I just, if there's anybody that's spending a lot of time with their kids, I'm pretty sure there's a good representation of that people here. So, they're just being very creative about how they're delivering the messages that they have. Now, it doesn't have to be just they've got pictures of Joseph Smith on the back of the wall or anything like that, but you can, you get to meet them, and over time, you like these guys. You like them. You like the son, you like the kid. The kid's blonde, he's cute, and the dad, he's, a little bit bumbly, but it's funny, and you're like, hey, I like these guys. And then you find out, oh, they're Mormon, that's really kind of nice, hey, Mormonism, that's not too, let's check it out, There it is. Twitter. Okay, now Twitter, I will say, unfortunately, I'm not an expert on Twitter. I have friends who are better at Twitter, but Twitter does have a significant influence vis-a-vis, case point, Donald Trump, right? Okay, it's getting out there. It's getting out there a lot, and people are engaging in very quick, quippy type ways. So I think the creativity is important. And let's see, I don't know if my wife is here, but she was telling me there is this guy, the Twitter account. It was like Flaming Unicorns or something like that, something odd. And it was basically the guy would tweet weird, funny interactions between him and his kids. Just his kid would say something weird and he would say something funny, and it just, this little interaction, 3 lines, I say this, or kid says this, I say this, kid says something wild. And just things like that. And people were like, oh, that's kind of funny, it's kind of interesting. And he's gaining notoriety and gaining influence over people. But very, very creative type ways. 2 billion tweets are sent every year. 500 million tweets are sent each day. I did find out about, do you guys know about Westboro Baptist? You've heard of the church Westboro Baptist? They're like, we hate fags and stuff like that. That's their shtick, is to be very, 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 aggressively pursuing, pushing their agenda through, very incisive type signs and things like that. Anyway, one of the daughters from the Westboro Baptist family, she got on Twitter, and I guess it was some tactical thing the church wanted to be able to have her help engage with people. Anyway, via Twitter, she gets, like there was all the perspective that her family and the church had been telling her, and over time she starts engaging with people on Twitter, and she's being very, very kind of vindictive and malicious and kind of giving the constant rebuttals that she gives. And then the people would just slowly kind of like ask questions and maybe not necessarily just put her off, but would just kind of talk with her and engage with her and kind of get underneath the vitriol and hate. And then they actually like kind of found out where she was fundamentally and what she believed. And over time, eventually she ended up leaving the church. So now they had a very fundamental view of Scripture, and you may not appreciate the way their strategy is, but they do believe what the Bible says. They take it seriously, and so by having this engagement with this young girl, and she was probably, I don't know, well, she was young, but like 18ish and older. So she basically got converted out of her faith. Anyways, over Twitter. It's on YouTube. That's where I found out. So essentially, there's an audience here. There's a massive audience on social media. Okay, so that's the road. That's the road. Now the question is, because I want to inspire you, I'm hoping to inspire you. What's your message? What's our message? What are the underlying fundamental things that we are trying to get people to subscribe to? Okay? Now, the beauty of this is that everybody has a different flavor, a different style, a different specialty. And that's all good. And that's all great. And I love that, because it's vibrant and it's dynamic. And so it doesn't have to be, that's the way he does it, so I need to do it like that, you just kind of pick up what styles you like. I like this medium best because it fits my lifestyle, so I'm going to go with that. I don't want to put my face in front of a camera, so I am going to find another way to share it. No, it's fine. But find out your voice. Find your voice, and how are you going to express that? So this is where we're talking about preaching, right? You have a message. Basically, you need to preach. Now, thankfully, because of this Roman road that exists, there's so many ways that you can spread your message. Books. So here, for an example, I have a book here. Now, I didn't do it the way Jason did it. I did it through CreateSpace, but basically, I was able to make my own book. Okay, now I'll give you a little bit of the history behind this one. So this is basically a Reformed Baptist catechism that we created for children that's supposed to be like a ready and go with your family to sit down. And I'm trying to encourage fathers to spend time with their kids, teaching them the fundamentals of the faith, right? So hey, what's this verse, what's this passage, and then they mark it down, they can keep a record of it, you can do it for multiple children, and then they have this interaction where there's this discipleship, like intentional discipleship. I'm teaching you the fundamentals of the faith and what Scripture says, and then also the catechism. Now, I put hymns in here as well because I have found it to be a blessing to have hymns that we've been able to memorize, because it's not all the time that we're able to have our little hymnal ready to go. I know some people do roll around with their hymnals, but if we have it committed to memory, we can just kind of go. The other thought that I had is that when we go to church, typically church is very word-centric, which is good. I mean, I appreciate word-centric, but if you can't read, there's a barrier there. There's a barrier for you to participate in some sense, unless it's in your brain, unless you already have it memorized. If you already have it memorized, your participation is much easier. So that's what I'm trying to encourage for the hymns aspect. So anyway, but you can do something like this, and the entry was essentially free. I didn't have to pay a dime to create and upload. I just paid for a proof to say, yes, I like that, and then that's it. And you don't even have to buy a proof. It's not even necessary. You could just say, yeah, cut, send it to press, go, and then start distributing it. And it's print on demand, so I mean, it's pretty impressive. For podcasting, the entry again for podcasting, I mean, I think Jessica was telling me the other day that there's a couple ladies, the Wilson daughters, I think Rachel and Sarah, they're sisters, and they're sitting in their car and they go record and they talk. And they just talk about being moms, like young moms. And they just talk and they're just like, oh, this is happening. This is funny. Why do you have 10,000 shoes outside your front door? Ha, 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 ha. It's okay. We're crazy, but it's, whatever. And they're just talking. And they put it on the internet. And people listen to it. And they get influenced by it. And it encourages them. Anybody here have a cell phone? It's very easy. It's very easy. Video is easy, and I haven't got into exactly too much how to do this, but basically camera, microphone, message, go. You can see your face and you can see other things, obviously, but video is another level. It's kind of like there's a lot of skill involved in it. And so it's not, it may take a little bit of time to kind of work to figure that out, but you can talk to me. I can explain that to you. Blogging, I think we're all familiar with this, but we're talking about like building a platform, which I use Michael Hyatt a lot. He talks a lot about how to build a platform and find a voice, which is what this is. So the guys who are doing it from Reconstructionist perspective, Caydence been doing it for quite some time. And then since Rush Junie's passing, it's kind of like everybody else, right? Like who is stepping up? So Reconstructionist radio guys, they're just getting started. They're producing 15 podcasts right now. It's completely organic. Just the people give it to them and then they push it out. Over 500,000 downloads is what they told me. Worldview in 5 minutes, which was an effort done by Kevin Swanson, which I think is great. It's great. It's like, here's the news from a biblical perspective, which, I mean, that's fantastic. You could use that a lot. So I link to that on my website. Apologia Radio, I don't know if you've seen these guys. They're kind of like, I know they don't claim to be hipsters, but I mean, they're like hipsters, okay? And so they're kind of a hip way of presenting hard gospel truths, theonomy, and like, boom, he just goes and they talk about it, and Jeff will just discuss what it is. Postmillennialism, boom, like here it is. This is why we believe it. This is why, and then he'll engage with other people. He'll have discussions hard against atheism. Nope, that's not. There's presuppositionalism. Like, I mean, he's very engaging type Reconstructionist type stuff. So they're doing it. So I got this quote from Rush Junie here from this book, The Journal of Christian Reconstruction. This one's about the symposium on the media and the arts, which I think we have a couple copies in the back. He said that Christian art was intensely practical because it was Christian. It was by faith linked to the meaning of life and hence to the central acts of man's life, his workmanship and work. And this is really my philosophy behind vlogging. Vlogging is like I'm trying to, as much as I can, show Christian life to be inherently practical so you can see what's happening in life. And hopefully it can explain to you what I'm thinking in the moments that I'm having in my life, right? I mean, I always felt like being a good father, being a good parent was providing a commentary, a day-by-day commentary on everything that happens and occurs. So I'm trying to influence your worldview by telling you how I view this subject so that you will learn how to view this subject. That's discipleship, right? Same thing I'm trying to do, except I'm recording it and a couple people are watching it. So lastly, the beauty, right? So I went flying earlier this week, Tuesday. I had to go to an out and in with the deputy. We flew. It was a day. It looked like this. This isn't us. But we flew out to South Dakota. And so we're taking a flight out there, and I'm just struck. I mean, by all the things that I'm seeing. I'm seeing beautiful rivers, mountains. I mean, seeing the Cascades from 30,000 feet. They are amazing. Amazing. It's just so beautiful. I'm seeing all the towns, the tiny little towns. I'm seeing roads just woven like a web. There's farms, lots of farms when you fly out east as well. And I saw Bill Evans from the sky. Yeah, and I got a picture of it. He's right there. Can you see him? He's right there. That's Bill. But I'm just thinking in my mind, this country, the Pacific Northwest, not even just a couple hundred years ago, was just wild, completely untamed, just barren, wasteland, not wasteland, but, just wilderness that's uncivilized. And over time, the Christianity, and it may not have been self-consciously, but the principles of cultivation, of dominion, has taken root and has continued to press forward. And so now, now we have a city. Now this city is a pagan city, but ultimately, the story of the city of God is a city, right? I mean, Revelation ends in the city, heavenly Jerusalem, right? So we're working on how to Christianize a city. Like, that's what we're supposed to be working towards. So I know we're going agrarian and stuff like that, but we're ultimately supposed to be able to congregate in a biblical mindset, in closely knit. And just that thought was just immensely beautiful and satisfying to my soul, to think about the progress of how Christianity is continuing to have influence over the culture in general. So, get out there and start sharing it with everybody else from a Christian perspective, from a biblical worldview. That is my challenge to you. So, I think ready now. We'll take maybe some questions.
Thank you, Joe. Okay. All right. Okay, so we have about 20 minutes or so. So we just invite you guys in now to the conversation. Joe presented some great information, some great data, maybe some information I didn't realize there was so many billions of people on Facebook every day. So, what questions do we have? Who has a question? All right, Korbin will bring in the microphone.
We'll tend to reach it. You're good.
So, concerning social media, we were realizing that they're becoming very social justice warrior converged and owned, basically, so that they're kicking off people that have viewpoints that they disagree with.
Yeah.
Realizing that it's not impossible to build our own roads, in a sense.
That's
because,
true.
like, as Twitter becomes that way, Twitter isn't the biggest thing yet. It's very large, but it's not something that is impossible to deal with. So that, Gab has come about as one that's completely insulated from convergence. They won't hire people that are going to, destroy the freedom of speech in that medium.
Yeah.
So, I mean, had you done any research that and what your opinions are on that particular aspect of not being able to say what you want to say or getting kicked off and stuff?
Right.
Could you guys hear the general question?
Okay, good. Thank you. So as I follow Michael Hyatt, he talks about that too. He talks about your platform, and he says that you basically want to own as much you can the rights to distribution of your content. So that's why, so if you think about hosting all of your information on Twitter or on YouTube, and your presence is localized to someone else's playground, essentially, like, you're limiting yourself. And it's not the way that you want to go, because ultimately it's not going to take, and they talk about the same thing if you're distributing, like you're selling product and saying all of your eggs are in Amazon, say you're just wholesaling stuff on Amazon, and then your account gets revoked, and then boom, and now you're scrambling, you're in trouble, right? So I think there is a lot to say for that. As far as if you're a content creator, then you do want to have some sort of domain that you're trying to be pushing people towards. And I think to just ultimately use YouTube or Twitter or Facebook as sort of a funneling thing, like funnel people to my base, funnel people to the base, and make the base a place where the interaction is happening, which I know is very hard to do. What happened? Where's your mom? She's over there. She's over there. You look lovely. It's a family meeting. So that's what I would recommend as far as that's concerned. Now, I would love if you have Christians who are kind of creating new platforms, and that would be great. I don't know where we are on that right now.
GodTube.
Okay, GodTube. Does anybody know how many people are on GodTube?
No, but it's a Christian version of YouTube.
Okay, yeah. So there's options like that, like GodTube, and so there may be an element to creating your own. I don't know if we're there yet. I mean, people are trying it. You can see how it goes.
It's also a Face Life website that looks a lot like Facebook out of Bellingham.
Okay.
Yeah, the logo
Face Life. Okay. Yeah, I haven't. Oh, Faith Life. Faith Life.
And he mentioned Gab as an alternative to Twitter.
The reason why I mentioned such a thing is it's secular in origin. It's going to bring in people who are not Christians, and yet they're not going to be
Censored.
Yeah, they're not going to be censored. Now, obviously, because you're not censored, you get the good with the bad. But I would
Yeah.
explain that the truth totally destroys lies. You
Right.
control the whole universe to
Right.
get an untruth, but a truth just blows it away.
Yes. That's true. So you're saying, as far as the engagement, while it's in a secular domain, they are not prohibiting this interaction that's happening, and the truth will win out.
Yeah, they're not looking for
Well, I was just going to mention that I don't know about these sites, but I know that Twitter and possibly Pinterest are dying. There's just they said there's like Twitter. I know Twitter stock has been crashing. They've been losing big CEOs every other day. So like there's room for software. People want to engineer in that field, start creating the next hip thing.
Yeah.
If we have Christians who are actually willing to use the platform well initially when the platform takes off.
Yeah.
We could be the ones controlling a social media platform.
Yes.
Because there's always room for innovation, even in the secular realm.
Yeah. So Aiden is just basically saying that some of those platforms are dying, and so new platforms can always spring up, right? And then other thing that I would say too that is not outside of the realm too is overtaking platforms, or basically infiltrating them and taking them over is also a possibility as well. I don't know anybody who's done that, because usually that's kind of like a under the radar kind of thing. But I'm saying is that like just like what happened in Judges with with Joshua and the spies, like we can do the same kind of thing. Send spies out there, find out what's going on, get the information, go back and take it over.
Jane, do you have a question?
How do you find a good balance between, I understand that these platforms can be good in giving our message, but they can also be great as being time wasters and damaging to our families as well. So how do you find that balance of using these platforms but not letting it destroy your family?
Yeah, so question is basically about how do you engage in these mediums without the corruption occurring in your home and with your family and with your children and stuff like that. I can give does anybody have any initial thoughts here on that?
Phil Telfer has a lot to say about it.
Phil Teffler?
Tefler, yeah.
Tefler?
Tefler, yeah. He has a lot. It's about managing that and stuff. What are your thoughts?
Yes. Mike.
Just like a day ago or so, I was seeing, not relative to moral issues, but just like psychological issues and how people interact with other people and various things. It was just talking about the demographic or the statistics of how interaction with the private phone, the iPhone, has completely changed how young people are, when they get married, how they respond to work, how they work with relationships. So besides any other worldview or being programmed in terms of how to think, in general, there's just some other really serious psychological things. I haven't researched that, but this article is very strong on that.
Yes. Yeah. I would say that while the Bible doesn't necessarily isn't gonna say don't use that road, don't use that medium. It's definitely going to say that you should be wise as serpents and innocent as doves, and so you need to be. We basically have to know our limitations. We have to know what we're capable, like what's going to be too much of a temptation, what's going to be too much of a distraction, and I think that has to just be individually developed as a personal sort of choice, as a personal monitor. So I think, so for me, I have to be honest about like, hey, this in this realm, in this area, like this is a bad choice for me. This is not a good place for me to be, so I'm going to not do that. So I think, and I know that kind of the effort is we don't want our children to necessarily be corrupted in that perspective, but they have to, in some sense, be allowed the opportunity to stumble so that they can see how to look down where they're walking. So we're not just pointing everything out to them, but they're learning how to see for themselves what they're supposed to avoid. And they do that occasionally by falling on their face sometimes.
Great. Time for probably one more question.
Anything else? Yeah, go ahead.
Are you familiar with quora, and the questions that come out of the blue about theology that come on that?
Could you tell what Quora?
Quora.com.
I haven't heard it.
Okay.
Could you just give us a real quick?
Quora, right?
Correct.
Like, what is it?
It's a forum where anyone can ask questions and anyone can answer.
Oh, okay. So like a Wikipedia, almost for theology?
Well, no, it's on any subject, but there is a category and so you can subscribe by category, and then you get emails telling you what the questions are and the categories you subscribe to, which religion is one of those categories, or Christianity, I can't remember.
Okay.
And so all sorts of questions that come in on that, providing Christians an opportunity to respond to what's the difference between Islam and Christianity, what's the all sorts of issues and questions that come up.
Great. Okay. Like forums?
Quora.
The medium it's like a forum. It's like thread. And...
Yeah, it's a threaded forum. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, great. I am personally partial to video because I feel like video, bandwidth is increasing so much, and the speed, and video is the way that people are just they're being fed, they're being influenced. So that's where I'm focusing. But there's certainly a lot to say for the intellectual, written aspects of discourse or dialogue as well. And hopefully it goes beyond 143 characters at some point, eventually. Because it's going to be hard to explain like substitutionary atonement in 143 characters. Great. Good?
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you guys. So we'll take about a 10-minute break.